Hey everyone, in this intense middle game I decided to capture with the bishop on d5. Now, most normal players would just simply recapture with c takes on d5, but my opponent, he was not a normal player. Here in this position, he decided to capture with the king. Here we have a very intense middle game, and I have a beautiful king hunt to show you. Let's take a look. Welcome back to another classical game analysis. This was another game that I played a couple months ago. This was another league match. The time controls were 70 minutes plus 10 seconds for each player. So my opponent, I wasn't expecting to play this particular person because this was in a tougher league, but he was kind of drafted in the last minute because they had a player drop out. So I went to get this guy. I didn't know how good he was. Apparently he's something that's just below sort of 1700, but we played this particular crazy position, and I was very surprised by his move order going out of the opening, which I believe kind of gives white a big edge, but it was still a very complicated position. So let's have a look at this particular game. So the game started with e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop c4, knight to f6. So just so you know, I was playing on the white side against my opponent who was playing on the black side. I forgot to mention that. So here my opponent had played the two knights defense. As you know, I love playing the two knights defense on the black side, so I know a lot of different theory, a lot of different stuff that I can play here. Now, the normal move here is just to play the move d3, and you get into some very boring Italian, well, I guess kind of like Roy Lopez type positions. I say it's boring. I mean, it is quite exciting, really, but it's not the sort of games that I like to play. Instead, I thought I'll go for a bit of spice, test his theory a little bit, and I played knights to g5, and I've had some success playing this line against sort of club players because they just don't really know the best way to deal with this threat. My opponent finds the right move, he plays d5, and here I played e takes on d5, and we're into the main line. I've looked at the main line so many times on this channel, I'll quickly show it to you, but the best move here for black is to play knight to a5. Might surprise you, this is called the Polero defense. It's a 16th century move that's been analysed really heavily, and it probably leads to about an equal position, albeit quite an interesting, quite dynamic position. So here you'd normally play bishop b5. Now black is going to actually have to gambit a pawn with c6, and you get this following continuation. It looks a little bit like this, where this bishop will normally come back to either e2 or bishop d3, just to show an example. And okay, it looks as though black's position is not that good. He's got pawns that look like Swiss cheese, but actually white's pieces aren't that well developed either, and actually this pawn structure will allow black to get his pieces out really, really comfortably. So I think actually this is a really interesting middle game position that you can go to out of the opening, and actually I think black does absolutely fine here, albeit it looks kind of a little bit ropey to begin with. Okay, so going back, again, I've looked at that line so many times, so I'm not going to waste too much time. But anyone, new people on my channel, which is pretty much like 100% of you, then you might have not seen that one before. Okay, so here instead my opponent played a bit of a novelty. When I say a novelty, it's just a move I've never seen before. Here in this position, he decided to play knight to b4. And I looked at this and went, oh, this cannot be right. Why has he played this move? Now, the simple threat is he's just looking to capture this pawn on d5. And I couldn't really find a good way to refute this particular move. Now, it turns out that this line has a name. It's called the Kloss Gambit. And, well, it's a little bit tricky to meet this particular variation. Now, the best move here is to actually play the move, well, not the move that I played, but play the move d6. And in some ways, I guess this kind of blasts open the centre, and it renews the threat on f7. The problem with this move, and what I was calculating in my head, is now my opponent can play b to d5, so actually blocking this particular threat. And it's not so simple how white kind of tries to intensify the pressure if I play something like, well, I mean, the best move here is actually to take here, but if I play moves such as like queen to f3, I think actually black's doing fine. He captures the pawn back, knight to c3, c6, and it turns out, I think actually, in this position, black is just doing fine. He's holding on to his he's holding on to the pawn, he's equalised the position, and it looks actually absolutely fine for black. If I just play a few more moves just to show you actually how fine black is. I mean, in this position, I would not be too upset to play on the black side here. I've got a little bit of pressure on the king side. I'm looking to play moves such as bishop here, maybe castle short, potentially. Good castle, well, maybe not castle long, but I think this looks absolutely fine for the black side. He's out of the woods in terms of craziness. So, in the game, let me just go back just 1 second. In the actual game itself, so I could have also played d6, and here, as I say, if they come here, then I can actually take this pawn on c7. And after d takes on c7, there's some interesting lines where white can then just hold on to his pawn, and he holds on to maybe like a slight edge in this position. But it's nothing like significant here. I mean, I would say that actually I quite like black's development. Oh my goodness, why do I keep accidentally going over that? That's really annoying. So I wouldn't say that black's position is, you know, much worse here. I think he's got a nice little bit of development. Probably play something like bishop to e7 followed by castles, and I think he's doing absolutely fine. Okay, so let's go back to what was actually played in the game. So instead, I just decided to put another piece and develop it. I just thought, well, this knight move doesn't look right. I'll just develop and see what happens. He now took back with f takes on d5. And here I took on f7. Now the reason I took on f7 is because I remembered another line that actually reaches this via transposition in the fried liver attack. So just to show you that, let me just go back to the start just for a moment. So here, if knight captures on d5, you can actually take here with fried liver attack. A lot of people have probably seen this particular line where the king ends up in the centre, can no longer castle, and gets attacked very quickly. And after knight to c3, I knew there's an interesting line with knight to b4, and it actually transposes into the line that we actually played. Now the problem with this move is that white can just put a lot of pressure on the centre, and while this knight move, yeah, you might be wishful thinking you can take here on c2, but you're just going to get checkmated. So just to show you an interesting line here, if let's say knight takes on here, then this is just totally game over for the black side. I think probably we'll show you a bit more of a sturdier, more interesting looking response. There you get checkmated. If let's say do c6 first, it looks a little bit better. Then against this d5, and now if c takes here, it still just totally loses. If you capture here on a1, this is just horrendous for the black side. Just to show you an example here, this is a simple checkmate on f7. Move 15, checkmated your opponent. Really nice. So anyway, knight to c3 was played. He captures this pawn now, gains back his material. I took on f7, and hey look, it's the same position, but it's just via a transposition. So I knew this particular line had to be pretty good for the white side. So I now castled here. He now played c6, d4, opening up the centre. He now put his queen onto f6, and I moved my queen onto e2. I was happy I found all these good moves, and I was able to kind of take advantage of some of my opponent's early moves. Now here, it's still, and weirdly enough, it looks even, this position on an engine, but it's still really practically very difficult to defend here. Now here my opponent played the first kind of blunder of the game. He put his bishop on the d7, a pretty weak move. I knew this wasn't very good, as it doesn't really help in defending his position very well. However, I didn't find the best way to continue. Here I played rook to e1. Oh, sorry, first played a6 first. Then I played rook to e1, which actually isn't that good. Instead, I actually had a very powerful response, which would have just totally crushed black, and that was the move f4. And it's really forceful, and black's defences just collapse in this position. So the obvious threat is I'm just looking to like come here and then open up this rook to the queen, and it's just awful, this position, absolutely awful. And there's not a whole lot that black can do. I'll just show you a few interesting lines. If let's say he runs away here, obviously this just runs into this. if he tries to go over here with the king, you could just capture this knight, and if the pawn captures, hey, look at that, you've got another nice fork. So it just falls apart. I'll just show you one last line. I think this is also interesting, but, well, I mean, I just take this pawn and it's just totally crushing the back. So it's a shame I didn't find that move. That would have been a really good move to blast open the centre. Instead I put rook to e1, which is still fine. And here my opponent played bishop to d6, and again I had this f4 move up my sleeve, and again this would have been just totally crushing. It would just be coming in. He can't actually do anything with this pawn. If he tries to move it forward, I just take. So it's a shame I didn't find these moves, because I think that would have been a very easy way to get the quick win here in this position. So instead, after here, I now put my knight onto e4, which I thought was a good move. He now moved his queen back to f8, and here I made a blunder. I had something in my mind that didn't really materialize anywhere, that I thought, okay, this looks pretty good, I might go for that, but yeah, I took here on d5, and the problem with this is now black can just capture back, and his defenses start to, I guess, things start to liquidate off, and he should be able to hold on in this position, albeit I still have an edge. But here is where my opponent made the critical error in this position. He now captured with the king. What? He came to king to d5. This cannot be right, this move. It just looks horrendous. However, I did not really find the best way to continue this line. The best move is actually to take this bishop here, and after something like this, the position is just totally opened up. The king is like trapped in the center, and it looks really, really scary. Instead, I decided to go for something a bit more flashy. I put my knight onto g5, cutting away these escape squares for the king, and then hoping I could just checkmate this king in the centre. The problem with this knight moving away is it now no longer takes part in this king hunt, it just blocks these escape squares. So here my opponent found the best move, the most sturdy response, and I've got to be a little bit careful here. I'm actually down a bishop in this position, so if I don't find checkmate, I'll just simply lose this game. So I've got to find the way to win. I first played b5, this took away this escape square. c5 was then played. I then threw my queen forward because I knew I can't have this king come over to c6 where it could maybe just run into the corner and just live another day, basically. His king came forward to c4. I threw a check, he put here, and here, funny enough, he actually offered a draw in this position, and I was like, no way, I'm not taking the draw in this position. This is like really good for me. So I instead played the move b5. This took away this escape square, and you know he's got to give up material back if he's going to be able to survive this, and even then, after he gives back material, he's still got a king trapped in the center. So he now plays c4 again, the most accurate defense to kind of just hold on in this position. King to e4, king to c5, and here the best move was actually capturing this pawn and just, I guess, kind of going for a bit of material. Notice here I'm forking all of his stuff. If he puts his king here, oh, I missed that. Okay, just run straight into checkmate. Wow, that's a cool move. So in actual fact, he has to play, well, rook, let's say rook to e8, for example, and then, well, you come with a check here. Okay, anyway, I didn't see that in the engine, so that's a pretty cool line, a pretty cool checkmate. Instead, I played the move c3, and this is actually a blunder. Let me just turn off the arrows. I actually played a blunder here, and I was thinking in my head that this looked really good after I take, and the king, it just looked, the king's just horribly exposed. But the king, he blunders anyway. Now the best move was actually rook to e8, and I actually saw this in my analysis afterwards, and I was like, oh, well, after I played the move, I went, oh, that looks like a really good move. You know, and funny enough, the king just survives in this position, king to c6, and it's just a very unclear position. His king is still not out of the woods just yet, but it looks as though black has stabilised a little bit, and the engine just says 0-0, so clearly there must be some perpetual draw here that white can go for to be able to draw this position. So it's a shame that I played that. Instead, however, he just moved his king to b6, so just to show you that, so king to b6, which was a blunder. I now took this knight back, got my material back, and here I took on d5, bishop to c5. It looked pretty scary because it looks as though, oh my god, I'm getting reverse checkmated, but I knew I had this king to b1 idea. The king came to a5, and here, once again, I actually made a small, I think it was a blunder. No, it wasn't this move. Oh, sorry, rook to e5. So I knew that this was still winning. He played b6 just to hold on. Now this bishop can't go anywhere, so I'm not worried about any of this sort of stuff. When he takes here, I just take back with the queen, and the bishop is still pinned. So that's pretty good. Here I blundered with bishop to e3, and again, funny enough, there's a ridiculous response here. So rook to e8 holds on. Did I say ridiculous? It's actually not that ridiculous. And actually, this position starts to stabilize a little bit. So just to show you an example line, you can kind of get to this position. And actually, this is, well, it's a drawn rook and pawn ending. His rook comes here. I have to go to f1 to stop this mating threat. And actually, this is fine now for black. He gets more than he deserves from this position, and it's probably going to end in a draw. I mean, I think both sides will start capturing all these pawns, and then we're left with a 3-2 pawn majority. In a rook and pawn ending like this is actually quite an easy draw for the black side. Although, you know, I would still kind of work for it, I would imagine. Okay, anyway, so he took here, which was a blunder, and now I threw in the check. King came to a5. And I was like, yes, I'm going to win this game now. I found a very nice continuation here. I first captured the bishop. He took back. He moved his queen over to c8 for some reason, and now I was able to checkmate with b6. A very nice finish, a double checkmate with the bishop and the rook here, delivering checkmate. I don't know if there was anything a little bit better here that he could have played. I was surprised he didn't come here. What was wrong with this move again? Oh, I see. I just take here and it runs into that. Okay, cool. Yeah. So that's pretty bad. After this, yeah, there's not really any other moves that he can do. I'm just threatening. Not that move. I'm just threatening this basically. There's not really a whole lot he can do about it. It says mate in 5. So you got b5 can be played, wow, but then you just lose the queen. Crazy stuff. So yeah, a very interesting game. Couple moments where my opponent could have stabilized, but you know, even in those sort of positions, when you've got an unsafe king, like anything is possible. Even if you just start making rubbish moves, the king's still unsafe, so it's like you've still got to deal with that problem. And you know, you've got to be super accurate in the defense, because you know, one move can just turn the game, and then you're getting checkmated in a couple moves or whatever. So yeah, I would guess I was, and on the one hand I was quite happy with the win, but on the other hand I was like, yeah, but I could have played this better. But in actual fact, you know, I don't think it's a healthy mindset. I thought, like, you know, there were some nice moves that I played. You know, I played principally in trying to get the king towards the centre, and then was able to checkmate him later on in the game. But still a pretty intense game. As I say, it was still a little bit crazy, some of the variations that we played. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like what you see, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you soon. Take care, bye.